UConn has had a profound impact on my development as a person and as a leader. The same values that I have today are the values that I had as a 21-year-old fourth grade teacher. I want to help children reach their God-given potential.
Secretary Cardona, welcome back to UConn, to your extended family.
Thank you.
We are all your cousins that you missed for a long time
Yes,
because
yes.
you are a busy person.
Yes.
So you started your career as educator in Connecticut. So then you tapped to the government Lamont job, and then as a Connecticut commissioner for education. And after President Biden nominated you to country secretary of education. So why did you decide to become educator and to be for 20 years in Connecticut as educator before you got your administrative jobs?
Well, first of all, President Maric, congratulations to you.
Thank you.
I'm really excited for you.
Thank you.
I know UConn blue runs through your veins as well. Your family, you have family members that graduated from here. You taught here. I'm excited for UConn.
Thank you.
I'm excited for UConn, and UConn is a special place for me. If it weren't for UConn, I wouldn't be serving on the president's cabinet. That simple. So I'm honored to be here to have a conversation with you, and I wish you the best as president. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I come from a family of public servants. When my parents came from Puerto Rico when they were young, they nestled in Meriden, Connecticut, and raised 3 kids. And my father was a police officer for 32 years, and I was raised seeing public service as something that brought him a lot of purpose and value. My mother, the door was always open for everyone to care for a family, or a very caring person. And they raised my brother, who serves as a lieutenant in the police department, my younger sister, who's a social worker, and I became the teacher. Serving the community was what we set out to do, whatever that was. Started off as a 4th grade teacher in my hometown, the same district that provided me a tremendous public education, and I had no plans of leaving. I loved 4th grade. I loved it. I wanted to stay there, but I was blessed to be given opportunities to serve as a school principal, district level administrator, and assistant superintendent in the same hometown where my parents moved, and the same hometown that provided me that education. And as you know, the governor asked me to serve as Commissioner of Education in 2019, which was a tremendous opportunity. We know Connecticut has so much potential, but it also has disparities in achievement that, to me, really are a passion of mine. The pandemic happened soon after, and it provided the best of Connecticut to come out. We were able to safely reopen schools quicker than many other states, provide technology, make sure kids are being fed. And that caught the attention of then President-elect Biden, and the rest is history.
Your home is in your heart, and it's palpable. So what was your driving goal as an educator in the classroom for 20 years, as a principal?
Look, the same values that I have today are the values that I had as a 21-year-old 4th grade teacher. I want to help the kids in front of me. I had 21 students there. I wanted to make sure that they reached their potential, that they saw the potential themselves. Now it's 50 million students, K-12, but the values are the same, right? Help children reach their God-given potential, work in partnership with families, help them see sometimes their potential when they don't even see it. I have to tell you, President, if it weren't for teachers, I wouldn't be here. And my message today is, don't limit students to their current dreams and aspirations, right? They might not even be dreaming big enough. So for me, education is an opportunity to help children think bigger. It happened to me. I had a teacher tap me on the shoulder and tell me to consider teaching, and that's what the profession means to me, and that's what this role means to me. It's an opportunity to do that at scale.
So do you feel that you accomplished your goals?
Never. I'm never going to punch out. I'm always going to be working on something else. I mean, we're proud of what we're doing at the Department of Education federally, but there's so much work to do. The pandemic exacerbated disparities in our country, not only in education, but in health and mental health, which I know is a topic that's of importance to you. And we have an opportunity. There's more urgency, more money in education, and we want to make sure that the level of urgency we had for the last 2 years to open schools, that urgency is used to fight the complacency that's going to settle if we don't continue to focus on those disparities and providing opportunities for our students and raising the bar in education, which is what we're trying to do.
So what more can be done to that end, and how will you feel we are there?
We have the responsibility to make sure that as we reopen our schools, we don't set as the goal March 2020. That system didn't work for everyone. So we need to rebuild our schools or reimagine our schools to include better mental health supports for students as the foundation, not as an ancillary after there was an issue with a student or after there was a traumatic event. We have to ensure that there are viable career and college pathways in our comprehensive high schools that connect our K-12 systems to our 2- and 4-year systems to our workforce partners. We've created a gap between K-12 and higher education. It's time to break that gap. It's time to close it. That means having dual enrollment programs in all of our high schools in Connecticut so that students can see themselves as college students when they're in high school. But making sure that they're in programs that lead to high-paying, high-skilled jobs here in Connecticut. We have the opportunity to really redefine that. So mental health supports, thinking seriously about career pathways, ensuring that we help our students recover is another critical portion of what the work is at the Department of Education. And really lifting up best practices. You know, I like to say that we in Washington don't have all the answers. Just by virtue of being Secretary of Education doesn't mean that I'm any smarter than I was when I served here. So it's my responsibility to bring good ideas like the ones that you have and scale them up across the country, but also to give you the opportunity as a new president to hear what's working in other places because they've struggled with it. You know, and I learned this during the pandemic, serving as Commissioner of Education. We're reopening schools. We have 169 districts. We're all trying to reopen schools. Why don't we talk to each other to see what's working, what's not working?
Best practices.
Exactly. And I think as a 4th grade teacher, I knew those 9-year-olds learned best when they worked with one another. As Secretary of Education, I know that leaders learn best when they're working with one another.
Beautiful. You made UConn proud. You put us on the map. What did you learn at UConn that helps you the most today?
I like to say UConn put me on the map.
Yeah.
Look, I walk these hallways. I remember I have 4 different degrees or certificates from UConn. My master's degree in bilingual bicultural education was critical. 2 days ago, I was at the Kennedy Center speaking to the room full of Latino leaders, actors from all over the country. And I said, being bilingual is a superpower. Being bicultural is a superpower. You know this. I learned that here at UConn with amazing instructors, amazing people. My leadership program, whether it was the 092 certification program, the ELP, Executive Leadership Program, or my doctorate in education here in these hallways, taught me how to work with others that are different. So UConn gave me the skills, the cohort experience that I had here. I still keep in touch with people that I went to school with here 20 years ago. UConn has had a profound impact on my development as a person and as a leader. So being here with you to do this interview means a lot to me. I learned a lot in these hallways and by the amazing instructors and the culture that's created here at UConn.
Thank you. We appreciate everything that you said, and I hope we are going to stay that great institution and improve every single day. So tell us a little about dealing with pandemic and what was the thing that guided you in deciding how and when to reopen the school and when the children should go back to the classroom, and what are the safety precautions that will be required and where we are now.
So let me just take you back to July 2020. I remember sitting on my couch and my wife and I were having a very deep conversation, and I asked her, what am I doing? This is not what I signed up for. I was ready to release a plan for the state of Connecticut on how to get back into school. A plan that was developed with amazing colleagues at the Department of Education. But just the immense pressure of knowing that we're going to reopen schools in the height of a pandemic, no vaccines, no testing available, mortality rates higher in Black and brown communities, people saying don't do it, you're going to have blood on your hands, people saying if you don't do it, you're going to exacerbate learning disparities, and children will be suffering because they're home alone. I remember at that moment, like having an epiphany, like, this is tough work, there's no playbook for this, but we have to do what's right, and we have to count on what we know. We counted on epidemiologists, we counted on good communication with the governor, with other leaders, with different areas of expertise. We got through that, and we were able to continue to collaborate and get our schools open safely. I'm not saying it was easy. There were challenges. But that moment on that couch, in that conversation with my wife, was necessary for me to have that resolve to do the work that we're doing now, to provide 43 million people with some debt relief, to push harder to ensure that we're not building a system that looked like the one that we had before the pandemic. So that was a moment of clarity for me that just furthered my passion and sense of urgency to make sure that the rest of my career I'm focusing on those things that matter with the same level of urgency we had that summer to get it right. But what I learned then is what I said in the question before. You never do it alone. You have to get good people around you, count on them, and push hard, because students are at the center. Students are at the center.
You know, I read many things about you because we are so proud of you, but you know, one that really personally touched me, how hard you worked when you said learning disparity, to get the laptops and hotspots for people who didn't have them. And I think until pandemic, we didn't know how many students don't have the basic access to the technology.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you know, we were working with Dell directly. We were working with other companies. We were working with philanthropy. But even before the laptops, we were working to get bus drivers to deliver meals to hungry kids whose parents were frontline workers. They couldn't stay home. So we had bus routes being followed with meals in the buses, dropped off at bus stops with social distancing, because we didn't know how it spread as much. That sharpened our sword, President, for the work that we have ahead of us. We got through that. We can get through anything, but we have to continue to do what we learned during the pandemic. We have to have a sense of urgency and never give up, and we have to work well together. And that's what I'm excited about. You being president, because I know that's what you bring to the table.
That's my goal. On students' loan forgiveness, why is this issue so important?
Yeah. You know, millions of Americans are suffering due to the residual effects of this pandemic, which we're not out of the woods yet. But the worst, I'd like to think, is past. It's my responsibility to ensure that our borrowers are no worse off now than they were before the pandemic. This student debt relief package is going to provide support to those who are trying to get back on their feet, trying to buy a home. I'm not even talking about the broken system that leaves students in debt, and way too much debt, that we're going to work on. But the student debt relief is going to provide relief for millions of Americans, much like we provided relief to millions of small businesses last year. We're getting Americans back on their feet. We know 90% of the dollars, roughly 90% of the dollars aimed at debt relief are going to go to people making under $75,000, middle-class Americans, folks who are struggling financially. I had a conversation with a teacher who told me she's going to help her daughter go to college now with the money that she's saving from paying her loans. Like, this is helping everyday Americans get back on their feet.
Are you planning any long-standing programs to help those now that are in high school and elementary school today?
Well, you know, we talked first about making sure that all students have access to college level courses in high school. I remember when I was a junior in high school and I took my first college level course. I'm a first generation college student, so for me, I grew a foot that day. I was so confident. I was so proud. The first one in my family to take a college class. That confidence was palpable. Every student should experience that. I've had too many experiences of talking to children or talking to families who say their children can't go to college because they can't afford it. The lost potential in this country. Making higher education more accessible, more affordable is my primary responsibility. And I'll tell you what, that also means holding higher education institutions accountable for a good return on investment. Making sure that a college degree doesn't mean a life sentence of debt. Debt forgiveness alone is not going to solve the problem, this broken system that we have. That's why we're going after bad actor colleges, shutting them down, the Corinthians, the ITTs. That's why we've fought to double Pell Grants, right? The increase in the last budget was the most in the last decade. We're looking to double Pell Grants by 2029. But we're also looking to increase college accountability and make sure that the college scorecard is rewarding universities for addressing social mobility. And that's our responsibility at the Department of Education, to make sure there's value in higher education, to make sure that it's connected to jobs, to make sure that there's a good return on investment in higher education. We know college graduates over the span of their lifetime make much more than students who are not college graduates, but we have to make it accessible to more people.
I don't know what to say. You say it so beautifully, you know. But some people in our federal government have a different notion of the student's loan and forgiveness. And how do you have discussion and bring them on board that they support what you are trying to accomplish?
Well, it's the understanding. I'm not going to bring everyone on board. Remember, July 2020, my plan, no matter how good I thought it was, had a lot of people saying, you can't do that. We are going to put students first. We're going to put Americans first, period. We're unapologetic about that. And a lot of those people complaining about it were the same people that supported a 2017 tax plan that had 85% of the dollars going to people making over $75,000. We're helping 90% of the money goes to people making under 75. I have a responsibility, and under the HEROES Act, I have waiver authority to ensure that people are not worse off after the pandemic, and I'm using that authority. We know this is going to help not only the families, but also the communities in which they live. Because when you default on loans or you can't, that hurts yourself, but it hurts the community. So we believe on principle and on values that it's the right thing to do. And let me shift gears from student loan forgiveness to public service loan forgiveness, a program that has existed for a long time with a 98% denial rate. We have public servants, teachers, veterans, nurses who served the public for 10 years or more, have paid their loans for 10 years or more, and are eligible for loan forgiveness. 98% of them were denied before. We changed that. We're fixing a broken system, President. So now I'm hearing stories of people who are having their loans forgiven under the public service loan forgiveness program and are able to buy a home. You know, people don't go into public service because of the money, right? Like my father. He didn't go become a police officer because he wanted to make millions. He wanted to help his community. And it's time that we have their back. And that's what we're doing.
Good heart. I call it good heart. So some of the details of the plan, can you share with us?
Sure. Well, the loan relief plan that we're working the details out on now is going to be simple. It's going to be quick. We have a website dedicated to this, studentaid.gov/debt relief. You can sign up for an email where we're proactively going to communicate with you when the timeline is ready and when we can share information about how to access this. But we want it to be simple and we want it to be fast. We want to change the culture of how we serve people. The Department of Education is a service agency. We're changing the culture to make sure people see it that way. Historically, there's been a lot of red tape felt, or it was difficult to get things. We're changing the culture, servicing our students and putting our students first in a process that they can understand and that's simple to them. So studentaid.gov/debt relief to find out more information. And as I said before, the debt relief is part of our bigger package to make sure that college is more accessible and affordable.
We just talked about the national teacher shortage, and can you share some of the thoughts? How do you think at the national level we can address that shortage?
Well, look, I'm using my position to say loudly that the teacher shortage issue is a symptom of a teacher respect issue in our country. Since I started as a fourth grade teacher, I've been fighting to make sure that it's thought of as a profession. Now as Secretary of Education, I'm still in the same position. That's our collective responsibility to change that. So what we're doing at the federal level is, and I, teachers love acronyms. So I put together an acronym of ABCs. We have to provide teacher agency, better working conditions, and competitive salary, right? And the competitive salary piece is important. The days of normalizing that teachers are driving Uber on the weekends or waiting tables, we have to challenge that. Remember what happened when Omicron hit and we had to shut down our schools because the teachers were quarantining. We are on the doorstep of a crisis if we don't take it that seriously. We need to make teachers' salary competitive. There's some states in our United States where teachers make 33% less than other college graduates with the same amount of time in college. That's unacceptable. We have to do better. So using the bully pulpit to talk about it, there are grant programs, the Hawkins grant programs. In my annual budget, you'll see line items aimed at addressing long-term solutions too, right? But before I get into the long-term solutions, the American Rescue Plan dollars, $130 billion for K-12 schools. We push really hard to make sure that that money is available to bring back retired teachers without any penalty to their retirement package. When I was here in Connecticut, we talked to the governor about that to make sure that, let's bring our retired teachers back, but they shouldn't be losing their retirement benefits if they come back to help us out. Also, incentivizing the shortage areas. There's a shortage of bilingual education teachers. There's a shortage of special education teachers. How do we incentivize those programs, providing bonuses or other incentives to using the federal dollars to get them back into the profession? Some of the long-term solutions. How are we connecting our districts to our universities so that there's a pipeline? So we have high school students that want to become teachers. They join a club in middle school. They take classes in high school. They're connected to UConn, and they go seamlessly into your program. And then before they graduate here, before they walk the stage, they have a job back in that district. That should be the rule, not the exception. So that's what we're saying we want to fund. We're seeing pockets of excellence across our country, but we have to systematize it, so that's the norm. Look, we have diverse students. We shouldn't be talking about a shortage of diverse educators. We have them in front of us. We just have to be creative, think outside the box, and make a pathway for them, using federal dollars, but also making sure that our state leaders prioritize that as well.
Thank you. Our Neag School of Education has almost 1,100 hopeful teachers. What is your message for them?
Well, look, my message to these teachers, this is the best time to become a teacher. This is the best time. If you're going into the profession, which I know they are, to improve the lives of children, to make our country better, you're needed now more than ever. Children are suffering. Families are suffering. The profession is getting bruised. We need you now more than ever. And give your kids your best. And me as Secretary and our Department of Education, we're going to have your back. That's the message.
Secretary Cardona, I cannot express in words how much I appreciate to meet you, but one thing that is so palpable is how much you care, lead with empathy and compassion. So you make UConn proud. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck to you.